ARTSail is a nomadic, multifaceted platform spanning from art residencies to educational and outreach programs that help communities move from climate awareness to climate action. The founder and executive director of ARTSail is Ombretta Agró Andruff, an Italian-born, Miami-based freelance curator and environmental activist with more than 20 years of experience.
I was born in Turin, Italy, in the northern part. Moved to New York in my early 20s, where I lived for about 15 years. And then finally found my way to Miami about 10 years ago. To be precise, it was actually December 2012. I've been a contemporary art curator my entire life. I realized I didn't have the talent to be an artist, but that I love to work with artists. I love to help them to express themselves and give them a voice. And becoming a curator seemed to be the best option for me in order to do this. So I finished my studies in Tuscany. That's where I did my university, my Bachelor in Fine Arts, and moved to New York in my early 20s. And I've been pretty much working as a freelance curator since then. I always was a nature baby. I love to hike in the mountains. I love to swim in the ocean. I grew up summertime in Sardinia. My parents bought a place right on the beach when I was just 5 or 6 years old. So I started swimming with my dad, snorkeling, diving at a very young age. So even though I really wasn't calling necessarily myself an environmentalist, my love for nature, my appreciation for nature, my understanding of what nature was giving me in my soul and my brain was always there. Maybe it wasn't formalized, but it was always deeply rooted in my being. So ARTSail was really born out of my desire to use my experience as a freelance curator and the artists that I knew and I had the great pleasure to be working with, and see how I can use the powerful voice of artists and culture producers to talk about issues that are often very cumbersome, very dark, very gloomy, in a way that would not push people away, but that would bring people in. And I really feel that through art and artists, we can talk about these issues in non-threatening way, which, mind you, doesn't mean to sugarcoat the pill. I think that it's really important to keep the urgency of the matters very much up in front, but to find ways to talk about these issues again in non-threatening and in ways that people can relate to. And what essentially I started thinking is, well, artists can bring their voice and create this echo chamber, but artists also need to understand the scientific data behind the climate crisis. And then bringing scientists and climate activists and artists together was a very natural step that allowed me to essentially, again, use the tools that were familiar to me, such arts and culture, allowing artists to communicate with scientists and vice versa, and allow scientists to share their data with audiences that are often not the usual suspects that sit in a science symposium, and render that data, again, more accessible to wider audiences. So it was, I want to say, 2014, 2015. I had been in Miami for a couple of years. I had been curating some exhibitions, meeting some really wonderful artists, and spending, as I said, a lot of time on the water. And I had this idea of doing a residency that would allow artists to really get to understand Miami from the point of view of the water. Back then, interesting enough, there weren't that many artists, even Miami-based, that were working with environmental issues or with sort of water-related issues, which I had found somehow surprising. And I reached out to the then artistic director of South Florida, Art Center of South Florida, which is now Ulite Arts. Her name is Susa Caraballo. And I mentioned to her about this idea. I said, I'd love to figure out a way to bring all these elements together and maybe create a residency around these topics. What do you think? And she loved it. So we brought this idea to the then artistic director and executive director of Ulite now. And she loved it. And so we applied for a grant with the Nye Foundation, an Arts Challenge grant. We were finalists the first year. We didn't get it. However, we applied again, and luckily we were able to get this initial grant. And that was in 2016 from the Nye Foundation. And essentially with that grant, this was positioned as a partnership between the Art Center of South Florida and the Frost Science. The Frost Science was a museum that was just about to open back then. So we go back a few years. And I came in sort of as the program director, sort of bringing all these pieces of the puzzle together and creating the content for it. So through them, we generated an open call for artists and cultural producers to send us their ideas about specific topics that we had outlined, such as sea level rise or coral bleaching or phosphorus pollution in the Everglades. We selected a jury. The jury selected the first artist in residence, and that's really how we started our programming with a very first resident who was Mark Lee Coven in December 2017. How often people ask me, well, can artists really have an impact, right? Should I put my money towards, let's say, a coral restoration or towards a beach cleanup? And I say absolutely all of the above. But again, I really do look at art and artists as real agent of change. I think we're well past awareness. I think artists can actually move communities from being aware of climate issues to taking climate action. And that really has been our vision. It is to move communities from being aware to taking action. And I want to put as much emphasis as possible on the outcome of the artists we work with, whether they are artists in residency who come to Miami, whether they're Miami-based artists that we work with in a variety of ways through, for example, World Oceans Weekend and other projects. I want to see that message amplify, again, beyond bringing awareness. I think the awareness is such a stale word right now. It really has no relevance anymore. I also want to put the emphasis of moving beyond sustainability towards regeneration. And I think that's something that artists can do very well. Bring attention, not just to become sustainable in the way we practice art, in the way we make art, in the way we create exhibitions, but really use art and culture to regenerate the resources and the land that we're all acting upon. And I think there are some fantastic examples of ideas and of artists collaborating with communities, with farmers, with landowners that are really deeply engaged in these kind of practices. And again, that can bring the change that is necessary. I just want to continue to do what we do. I hope we can expand our program more global. Again, we've able to establish during the pandemic while we were all locked in behind a computer. I had the great blessing to participate in a variety of panels and symposia, and through them being able to connect with people that are doing incredible work at a global level. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to grow on this global network. And lastly, there's something I'm very excited about, and that I'm super excited that you'll be part of it, which is our Shearers of the Ocean platform. This is something that I started last June, actually during World Oceans Weekend. And it's a platform that I like to grow sort of as a separate, even though part of ARTSail, but I am finding about these incredibly talented, fierce, powerful women across the globe that are doing incredible work for our environment, for sustainability, to advocate for climate justice. And I'm excited about the ability to do talks like this one, to create opportunities for these women to get to know each other, to exchange best practices. And so we're hoping to be able to establish a platform, both online, in person, and hybrid when possible, to enable these networks to grow and hopefully really bring impact and change to all these incredible women's practices and lives. First of all, supporting ARTSail means supporting our ocean. So be more conscious. Simple things, the usual suspects, but it's always good to say it again. Don't use single-use plastic. Go get your grocery with a reusable bag. Grab a water bottle. Don't buy plastic bottles. Any kind of debris that we avoid throwing on the streets or on the beach, it's less debris that's going to end up in our ocean. That's the first. Obviously, in terms of what we do, we can use support in terms of volunteers when we do our events. For example, we're Oceans Day. We're always looking for volunteers to help us manage the event, participate in beach cleanup with us and the organization that we partner with. Funding, it's crucial. ARTSail, it's really a one-woman operation with fantastic partners and volunteers who are helping me to achieve all that I can. But unfortunately, funds are necessary. So any donation, as small as it could be, matters and makes a difference. So I always encourage people to go onto our website. They can find the donate button there. So those are really the ways that people can support us. But again, just be more mindful about what you do and your own personal footprint. And I think that's going to be a good step forward for all of us and whole humanity.